I'm determined to have my first real conversation in English, and my goal is simple: buy bread and milk from the local bakery. It might not sound like much, but for me, it's a big step forward. Will I find the words? Will they understand me? I don't know, but I'm ready to try. So, join me as I take this first step. Along the way, we'll learn some useful phrases together, and you'll see that even small moments can make a big difference. The morning sun was bright and warm as I stepped outside. Sunnyville was alive with quiet energy. I could hear the cheerful chirping of birds, and a soft breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. The streets were lined with colorful houses, each with neatly trimmed gardens. Neighbors greeted each other as they passed, and a small dog barked happily from a front yard. As I walked down the street, I spotted a small bakery on the corner. A sign hanging above the door read, "Fresh bread daily." Through the large windows, I could see shelves filled with golden brown loaves and pastries. The sight made my stomach growl. This was the perfect place to start my journey. I stood outside for a moment, taking a deep breath. The idea of speaking English to someone made my heart race. I glanced at the list in my pocket: bread and milk. Simple enough, right? But the words felt heavy, as if they might disappear the moment I opened my mouth. Finally, I pushed the door open. A little bell jingled above me, and the warm, inviting smell of fresh bread and cinnamon filled the air. The bakery was cozy, with wooden shelves and a display case full of pastries. Behind the counter stood a man with a friendly smile. He was middle-aged, with short gray hair and glasses. "Hello, welcome to Sunnyville Bakery," he said cheerfully. "How can I help you?" I froze for a second. My mind went blank, but then I remembered the phrase I had practiced: "I need bread and milk, please." Taking a deep breath, I managed to say, "Hi, I need bread and milk, please." The man nodded, his smile never fading. "Sure thing. What kind of bread would you like? White bread or brown bread?" His words came quickly, and I wasn't sure how to respond. I looked at the shelves, searching for a clue, and pointed to a loaf. "That one, please," I said hesitantly. "White bread." "Got it," he replied, picking up the loaf and placing it in a paper bag. Then he gestured to a fridge in the corner. "You'll find the milk over there." I quickly grabbed a small bottle from the fridge and brought it back to the counter. The man rang up my items. "That'll be $5, he said. I handed in the money and smiled. "Thank you," I said softly. "You're welcome," he replied. "Have a great day." As I stepped outside with my bag in hand, I felt a mix of relief and pride. It wasn't perfect, but I had done it. My first real conversation in Sunnyville was complete. As I walked away from the bakery, I couldn't help but replay the conversation in my head. "How can I help you?" Those words echoed like a small victory. I had managed to ask for what I needed and understood the clerk's responses. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Suddenly, I stopped in my tracks. Butter. I had forgotten to buy butter. Bread and butter were my favorite breakfast combination, and without it, my meal would feel incomplete. I turned around, laughing at myself, and decided to go back to the bakery. The little bell above the door jingled as I entered again. The same man was behind the counter, arranging loaves of bread on the shelves. He looked up and smiled. "Back so soon?" he asked with a friendly chuckle. "Yes," I said, feeling a little more confident this time. I forgot something. I need butter, please. Of course, he said, walking to the fridge. We have salted and unsalted butter. Which one would you like? Salted? Unsalted? The word sounded familiar, but I wasn't sure of the difference. I hesitated for a moment, then pointed to the first one I saw. That one, I said with a smile, hoping it was the right choice. Salted butter. A good choice, he said, handing me the small package. Anything else? I shook my head. No, that's all. Thank you. He rang up the butter and handed me my change. Then, to my surprise, he asked, "Are you new to Sunnyvale?" "Yes," I replied, nodding. "I moved here a few days ago." "Well, welcome to Sunnyvale," he said warmly. "It's a lovely town. I think you'll enjoy it here." "Thank you," I said, feeling a genuine connection for the first time since moving here. The simple kindness in his words gave me a sense of belonging. I left the bakery with my butter and an even bigger smile. The second visit felt much smoother than the first. I was still nervous, but speaking was starting to feel less like a hurdle and more like an opportunity. Each interaction was a step forward. As I walked home, I thought about the phrases I had used. I need butter, please, and that's all, thank you. They were simple, but they had worked. I realized that learning English wasn't just about vocabulary. It was about having the courage to try, even if you made mistakes. Passing by a garden, I saw a woman watering flowers. She looked up and smiled. "Good morning," she said brightly. "Good morning," I replied, my voice steady. It was just 2 words, but they felt like another small victory. When I got home, I placed the bread, milk, and butter on the table. As I prepared my breakfast, I couldn't help but feel proud. The butter melted perfectly on the warm bread, and each bite tasted like success. Today had shown me that even the simplest conversations could open doors, not just to learning a language, but to connecting with the people around me. Back at home, I sat by the window with a notebook in front of me, reflecting on my trip to the bakery. The conversations I had were small but significant. Each word I managed to say and understand felt like a step forward. I opened the notebook and wrote down the key phrases I had used today. How can I help you? I need bread and milk, please. White bread or brown bread? That one, please. Good morning. These simple phrases had carried me through my first real interactions. I repeated them out loud, paying attention to my pronunciation. With each repetition, they felt more natural. As I went over the conversations, I noticed a pattern. People were kind and patient. The man at the bakery smiled and spoke clearly, which helped me understand. The woman in the garden greeted me warmly, encouraging me to respond. I realized that making mistakes wasn't as scary as I'd thought it was part of the process. I also thought about what I could do better next time. For instance, when the baker asked about salted or unsalted butter, I hesitated. Maybe I could prepare by learning more about everyday items like types of bread, milk, and other groceries. Knowing these words would help me feel more confident. Looking at my notes, I wrote a tip to myself. Use small phrases to build confidence. Even saying good morning to the neighbor had made me feel more connected to Sunnyvale. It showed me that practicing little interactions every day could make a big difference. Finally, I wrote another goal: to ask a question during my next conversation. Something simple like, "How are you?" or "What's your name?" Starting with these small steps, I knew I could keep improving. The sun was beginning to set, and the quiet hum of the town filled the air. I closed my notebook, feeling more determined than ever. Tomorrow, I would use what I learned today to take on a new challenge. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of determination. As I sat at my small wooden desk, I opened my notebook and decided to recreate the conversations I had at the bakery. Writing everything down felt like a good way to practice and prepare for the next time. I started with the first conversation. Me, "Good morning." Clerk, "Good morning. How can I help you?" Me, "I need bread and milk, please." Clerk, "What kind of bread would you like? White bread or brown bread?" Me, "White bread, please." Clerk, "Here you go. Anything else?" Me, "No, thank you." Repeating it aloud, I spoke slowly, making sure to pronounce each word clearly. The phrases felt more familiar now, like tools I could use any time. Then I moved to the second interaction. Me, "Hi. I forgot something. I need butter, please." Clerk, "Sure. Salted or unsalted?" Me, "Salted, please." Clerk, "Anything else?" Me, "No, that's all. Thank you." After practicing these dialogues a few times, I decided to add something new. What if the clerk asked me about eggs, or maybe something else? I created a new scenario. Clerk, "Do you need eggs today?" Me, "Yes, please." "I need 6 eggs." Clerk, "Anything else?" Me, "No, thank you." That's all. Imagining these situations helped me feel more prepared. As I read through my notes, I challenged myself to answer a few questions. What would I say if the clerk asked, "How many eggs do you need?" What if they asked, "Do you need anything else?" I even wrote down new questions to ask next time. Do you have apples? Can you recommend something? Looking at the phrases and scenarios I had practiced, I realized how much progress I had made. My confidence was growing, and I felt ready to try using these phrases in real-life conversations. By the time I finished, the sun was shining brightly outside. Today, I would put my practice to the test. With my practiced phrases fresh in my mind, I decided to head back to the bakery. This time, I had a clear goal: buy a few more items and have a longer conversation. The air was crisp and refreshing as I walked through the streets of Sunnyvale. The friendly atmosphere of the town made me feel at ease, even as I anticipated speaking in English again. As I entered the bakery, the little bell jingled, and the same man behind the counter greeted me with a warm smile. "Hello again." "Good to see you," he said cheerfully. "Hello," I replied confidently. "I need butter and eggs, please." "Of course," he said, stepping toward the fridge. "Salted or unsalted butter?" "Salted, please," I answered without hesitation this time. "And how many eggs would you like?" He asked. 6, please," I said, feeling proud of how smoothly the words came out. As he placed the items on the counter, I decided to take the conversation further. "Do you have apples?" I asked, pointing to the display of fresh produce near the window. "Yes, we do," he said, gesturing toward the apples. "Red or green?" "Red, please." 3, I said, smiling as I realized how comfortable I was becoming. The baker gathered the apples and added them to the bag. "You're getting better at this," he said with a nod. "Learning English?" "Yes," I said, feeling a bit shy but happy. "I practice at home." "That's great. Sunnyvale is a good place to practice. People here are always happy to help," he said warmly. "Thank you," I replied, encouraged by his kind words. As he rang up my items, I decided to ask another question. "Do you sell?" "Jam?" I asked, glancing at a shelf filled with jars. "Yes, we do." "Strawberry or raspberry?" he asked, holding up 2 jars. "Strawberry, please," I said, adding it to my growing list of purchases. When everything was packed and paid for, I felt a sense of accomplishment. The interaction had been longer and more complex than my first visit, yet it felt natural and rewarding. "Thank you," I said as I picked up my bag. "You're welcome." "See you next time," he said with a wave. Walking out of the bakery, I couldn't stop smiling. Each phrase, each question, and each answer felt like a victory. I was no longer afraid of speaking up. Instead, I looked forward to these small interactions, knowing they were helping me grow. On the way home, I greeted a few neighbors, saying, "Good morning," with a confidence I didn't have just a few days ago. Each response, a smile, a nod, or a cheerful reply felt like another step toward becoming part of the community. Back at home, I unpacked my bag and reflected on the day. I had learned new phrases, asked questions, and received compliments on my progress. Most importantly, I realized that speaking English wasn't just about using the right words. It was about connecting with people and being open to learning from every interaction. As I prepared a snack with my fresh apples and jam, I smiled. This journey was just beginning, but each small success was paving the way for bigger achievements ahead. The next day, I woke up feeling energized and ready to put my English skills to the test in new situations. With each interaction, I was beginning to feel more confident, and today was the perfect opportunity to practice what I had learned. As I stepped outside, the morning air was cool and refreshing. Sunnyvale was bustling with activity. A neighbor across the street waved at me, and I responded with a cheerful, "Good morning." "Good morning, Alex," she replied. "How are you today?" For a moment, I froze. This was my first time hearing the question, "How are you?" directly in a conversation. I smiled and said, "I'm good, thank you. And you?" "I'm well, thank you," she said with a warm smile before heading back to her gardening. It was a small exchange, but it felt like a big step forward. Feeling encouraged, I decided to visit the local market. The stalls were colorful and lively, filled with fresh fruits, vegetables, and handmade goods. One stand in particular caught my eye, a vendor selling fresh flowers. I approached the stand and greeted the vendor, an elderly woman with a kind face. "Good morning," I said. "Good morning," she replied. "How can I help you?" "I want flowers, please," I said, scanning the colorful bouquets. "Sure. Which ones would you like?" she asked, holding up 2 options. "Roses, please," I replied, pointing to a small bouquet of red roses. "Lovely choice. How many?" she asked with a smile. "3, please," I said confidently. As she wrapped the flowers, I decided to ask a question. "How much for the roses?" $5, she said, handing me the bouquet. I paid for the flowers and thanked her, feeling proud of the interaction. Next, I stopped by a small grocery stall to pick up a few items. The vendor greeted me warmly. "Hello, what can I get for you today?" "I need apples and bananas, please," I said. "Red or green apples?" He asked. "Red, please," I replied, adding, "and 5 bananas." "Here you go," he said, placing the fruits in a bag. "Anything else?" "No, thank you," I said, paying for the items. As I walked home with my purchases, I reflected on the day's conversations. Each exchange was smoother than the last, and I realized that practice was making a difference. I had used phrases like, "How are you?" and "How much?" naturally, and even added new words like roses to my growing vocabulary. When I got home, I placed the flowers in a vase and sat down to jot down my experiences in my notebook. I wrote out the key phrases I had practiced. "Good morning." "How are you?" "How much?" "I need." "Please." Each phrase was a reminder of how far I had come. I also added a new goal for tomorrow: try to have a longer conversation and ask more questions. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over Sunnyvale. As I looked out the window, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. The people in this town had welcomed me with kindness and patience, making it easier for me to learn and grow. With a smile, I closed my notebook. Tomorrow was another chance to practice, and I couldn't wait to see where the journey would take me next. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting Sunnyvale in hues of gold and orange, I sat by the window with my notebook open. Today had been another step forward, a day filled with small but meaningful victories. I had spoken to neighbors, bought flowers at the market, and even asked questions with growing confidence. Flipping through my notes, I reviewed the phrases and words I had learned. "How are you?" "How much?" "I need." "Please." These were more than just words. They were tools that helped me connect with the world around me. Each interaction, no matter how simple, was building my confidence and showing me that learning English wasn't just about studying. It was about engaging with others and embracing the process. Before closing my notebook, I wrote down my next goal: start a conversation with someone new. It felt ambitious, but I was ready for the challenge. As I looked out at the peaceful streets of Sunnyvale, I felt a sense of belonging. This journey was far from over, but I was proud of how far I'd come. Every small step counts, I reminded myself with a smile. Tomorrow, I would take another.